Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now on the phone is the Senate's most senior Republican, Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah. Senator Hatch is the ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee and also a member of the Judiciary Committee. And Senator Hatch, thanks for being with us today.
Glad to be with you, Kathleen. You guys do a very good job. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, today, Attorney General Eric Holder announced that the Justice Department would be challenging states' voting rights laws. This after the Supreme Court last month struck down a key portion of the Voting Rights Act. How do you view this move by the Attorney General, and what do you see as the fallout from such an action?
Well, I like Eric personally, but I think that's outrageous. I mean, the court has already ruled, and he's trying to reinstitute the Voting Rights Act in Texas. If I was a Texan, I'd be so doggone livid and mad about that. I don't think I'd ever get over it. But that's not the thing to do. And it just shows how this administration ignores the law. And they act like they're 10-party despots. And it's something that really is starting to concern a lot of us. The president is continuously doing things that he has no authority to do. Mm-hmm. And yet they just do them and they get away with it because I think many in the liberal media just will not hold them to account like they would a Republican president if the Republican president tried to do things like this.
Do you feel that this move is about keeping Democrats in power in perpetuity?
I have no doubt that that's what they're trying to do. I mean, the Civil War's been over for a long time. We've come a long way on civil rights. I believe that the states are doing a terrific job in most respects. The ones who used to be under the Voting Rights Act provisions. Hey, some of the worst states are blue states, where they treat minorities like dirt and don't take care of them, don't do what's right by them, and frankly, a lot of this liberal stuff comes out of those states.
Senator, let's chat for a second about the president's speech yesterday. The latest Wall Street Journal NBC poll shows President Obama's approval numbers seriously underwater, with only 45% of voters happy with his performance. In a speech at Knox College yesterday, the president blamed Washington, saying it had, quote, taken its eye off the ball, unquote. Is running against Washington a viable strategy for a president now 5 years into his administration?
I think he just can't get away from the role of blaming George Bush and the prior administration for everything. As the old baseball player Yogi Berra used to say, it's deja vu all over again. How many times have we heard this speech? We've certainly heard these failed ideas over and over again over the last 4+ years. They haven't worked, Mr. President. That's what I'd say. The American people know they haven't worked. So the president, he can travel around and give these campaign speeches and blame Congress all he wants. But as Speaker Boehner said this morning, the American people are looking for jobs, not more speeches. They're looking for opportunities for themselves and their families, not more speeches. And they want to hear solutions and see the economy improve, not more speeches. So my reaction is just that. Here we go again. It's good to see the president get back in the game and at least say he's going to focus on the economy again. The Republicans in Congress have been laser focused on the economy. So if this is the time the president is going to actually work with us and try some of our ideas, then great, but I'm certainly not optimistic.
Speaking of the economy, several leading Republicans have said they won't raise the debt ceiling unless they get spending cuts from Democrats in return. Should Republicans allow a partial government shutdown if that's what it takes to rein in spending?
Look, I agree with my colleagues who believe that Obamacare is a disaster and has to be stopped. And that's why I've been fighting so hard to repeal it. And frankly, I hope that Senate Democrats join with their House colleagues and back delays to the individual as well as the employer mandates. After all, it's a question of basic fairness. I'm supporting legislation to repeal the law in its entirety, as well as I've introduced legislation to repeal the individual mandate, the job-crushing employer mandate, the medical device tax, and the health insurance tax, all of which aren't working, and all of which are doing harm to our country.
And your fellow senator from Utah, Mike Lee, is leading an effort in the Senate to defund Obamacare by rejecting a continuing resolution that would lead to a government shutdown. Can you share with us whether you would indeed vote against the continuing resolution that includes Obamacare funding, even if it shuts down the government?
Well, I have to say that I have a different view on how to do this, and that's an interesting perspective, but he's not going to win on that, and that will open the Republicans up to all kinds of false criticism.
You're saying Senator Lee wouldn't win on this one?
I don't think he'll win on that. I mean, I give him credit for trying. He's certainly a nice young man, and he's my partner. But I don't think that's the way to do it. I think we have to continue to make our case against Obamacare, and I think we're winning that case. I think the American people understand that, and frankly, I think there are better ways of winning on that issue.
Senator, you've called on Teamsters President James Hoffa to join the GOP in calling for a permanent delay of Obamacare after he said that Obamacare is perverse and will hurt all Americans. What, if any, response have you received back from him, and what do you make of the complete 180 on Obamacare by the union?
Well, I'll give them a little more time, but look, the more people learn about Obamacare, the more they dislike it. And that includes a lot of groups that supported the law previously, including almost all of the unions. Like you say, recently, 3 of the largest unions, the Teamsters, the Food and Commercial Workers, and Unite Here, wrote to the Obama administration and Congress to complain about Obamacare. They complained about the rising cost of health care under the law, and they're afraid that it's going to ruin their health care that they fought so hard to obtain. So I wrote to these 3 unions and asked them to join me in the fight to permanently delay the law.
Senator, let's chat for a second about tax reform, because I understand that tomorrow you and Senator Max Baucus or today rather, you unveiled your plan for tax reform. And according to published reports, it involves wiping the slate clean and starting from scratch. What can you tell us about your tax plan? And should any rewriting of the tax code be revenue neutral?
Well, we both agreed, and I was pushing it pretty hard, that we start with a blank slate and then see what has to be added to that. There's no bill to mark up just yet, but we're right now meeting with members of the committee, and I'm meeting with the Republican members, he's meeting with the Democratic members, and we're seeing what they'd like to have in tax reform. But I just believe that we simply have to redo this tax code. It's not efficient. It's not competitive. It doesn't help job creators. It doesn't help hardworking middle-class families. So we got a lot of work cut out for us, and frankly, we both agreed it should be a revenue-neutral approach. But later, I guess the leadership in the Democratic Senate got to Senator Baucus, and he has said there will have to be some revenue. He didn't say how much or what, but just today, Senator Reid and Schumer both said that the revenue should be around $975 billion or more increase in taxes. Well, we've already given them $600 billion in taxes on the fiscal cliff deal, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, all the taxes they're going to get.
Senator, let's switch gears real quickly and chat about immigration reform. You voted for the bipartisan immigration plan in the Senate, which, according to Speaker Boehner, the House will not bring up for a vote without majority support. What do you make of the House's piecemeal approach to immigration reform? And considering that Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid says that the Senate will consider only a comprehensive package, is it growing less likely by the day that we'll have a new immigration reform law this year?
Well, I think we did a pretty good job in the Senate bill. The more you look at it, the more you realize a lot of problems are solved by that bill. But the House is the House, and they have to look at it through their perspective, and hopefully they'll come up with a bill themselves that we can go to conference on and even make a better bill out of what the Senate bill and the House bill really are. But, we have to do something here. We've got de facto amnesty on 11 million people who don't know what their status is other than they're illegal, who don't know what to do, many of whom are very good people, many of whom are taking jobs that Americans will not take, that we've got to have done, especially in agriculture. We solve a lot of those problems in the Senate bill. Now, there are some in the House who want to do this on a step-by-step approach. I think that's a very hard approach. But they are coming to the conclusion that at least they should do the bill for students and young people, and frankly, that's a big step right there. But I do think we're going to have to face the music and do a major immigration bill before it's all said and done, and it'll be in the best interest of our country to do so, rather than keep this de facto amnesty thing going the way it is. I have to say this, that I worked with Senator Rubio, as well as Senators Feinstein and Bennett from Colorado, on the farm bill part. Our farmers tell us they've just got to have that. And I had real skepticism as to whether we'd ever be able to solve the farm worker problem, but we did. And we were able to get the unions and the farmers' organizations together, and that alone is a very, very important part of this bill. The H-1B part that I put into the bill, very, very important, because why do we educate these people in the STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math fields, and they get master's degrees and PhDs, and then we push them overseas. We push them out of the country, so they go into other countries and compete with us. I mean, it's just stupidity. But now we've got that in that bill, and that's a very, very important part of the bill. There are a lot of other good things in the bill. Could it be improved? Yeah. Is it everything I want? No. I'm counting on the House to come up with a better approach, and hopefully we get together in a conference and we'll solve these problems. But there are people in the House who are afraid of a conference. Why? They don't have to accept anything.
Senator, we understand the Judiciary Committee yesterday met for hearings into President Obama's nominees for the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Washington, D.C. district. Will you, Senator Grassley, and other Republicans on the committee oppose these nominees? And if so, are you concerned Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid could change his mind on the rules governing the filibuster?
We won't oppose these nominees as individuals, because some of them are pretty good people. But the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals is probably the most important circuit court in the country, and maybe the most important court in the country, because it hears a lot of matters, including all administrative matters, that where it's the final statement. And frankly, it's a very, very important court. Right now, it's divided, 4 appointed by Republican presidents and 4 appointed by Democrat presidents. But the important thing is that their caseload is so low in comparison to all other circuit courts in the country that they really, putting new justice on there is not justified. And just a few years ago, the Democrats, when the Republicans were in control and wanted to add people to that court, they had fits over it because they said that they don't have enough casework to do it. Now all of a sudden they want to overbalance the court so they can do their legislation through the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals rather than have to face the music in the Congress of the United States, where it's going to be more difficult to do it. And frankly, this is a very, very important battle. Now, will they pull the nuclear option? Well, Harry Reid promised everybody that he would not pull the nuclear option with regard to judges. But it's just another illustration of hypocrisy from Washington Democrats.
Last question for you, Senator. Wyoming Senator Mike Enzi is now facing a primary challenge from Dick Cheney's daughter, Lynn. Senator Enzi has a strong conservative record. Are you happy about this primary challenge, and will you be supporting Senator Enzi?
Well, I like Dick Cheney, and I love Lynn Cheney as well. I love both of them. But Lynn should not get into this race, because you can't find a better senator than Mike Enzi. He's doing a terrific job here. He's a really fine conservative. He's on my finance committee. I know him really well. He's everything that Wyoming wants in a senator, and I believe he'll win this election. And he should. When conservatives start having, combat among themselves, that's a sure loser as far as I'm concerned. I wish Lynn well, because I love her and appreciate her, but she should not have done this. And I'm for Senator Enzi, no question about that.
Senator Orrin Hatch, thanks for being with us today. As always, a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you. You take care.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.